time we talk about the real first-person shooter.
Oh, yeah?
Battlefield, baby.
Okay.
Battlefield, what a series.
That's not what I thought you were going to say.
What do you think I was going to say? Half-Life.
Overwatch.
Something we're talking about later.
Yeah, we're talking about
you've been
Overwatch.
playing.
I mean, I love
Another
Overwatch.
futuristic shooter.
Yes, exactly. The future where we have
God, please tell me.
anthropomorphized apes who are able to. I mean, apes are pretty anthropomorphized already, really, aren't they? Yeah, that's the one thing they've got going for them.
You apes want to live forever.
Bring me the spaceman. No, we're going to talk about Battlefield, a storied video game franchise.
No. Get rid of the story. We don't need the story. Just put a fork in it. Done.
One of my favorite long-lasting memories of this franchise was Battlefield Vietnam saying that there was a campaign on the back of the box, and then there wasn't.
Yeah.
No, they just took it out of the menu. Replaced it, instant action, bots instead. So let's have a chat. We're all fans of the Battlefield series here. I thought it'd be a fun time because we don't really know what they're going to announce on Thursday, so there's no point in us like talking about it. But what we can talk about is our love of the game's past and sort of what is like the best Battlefield game. The series started back in, I guess it was it 1999? No, 2002 with Battlefield 1942.
Which now looks like an iPhone game. It's amazing.
It's crazy.
If you fire that up, I think it's free on Origin, or it was for a while.
Right. Yeah, because the draw distance that they had to calculate in that game for the time was so much longer than you would think. So like, there's just all these crummy pixel people that you're shooting at. Yeah. Were you a fan of that one, Aaron?
I actually fell in love with the series. So I played a little bit of 2 just because back then PCs were expensive and I didn't have a lot of money at that time. The first very accessible Battlefield game was Bad Company and Bad Company 2.
Yes.
Which is kind of where I really fell in love with it. But I completely understand that the generation of people who played Battlefield 2 on PC, who could afford PCs at that time, they fell in love with the open conquest, just freedom of that game. So it's weird. Over the years between that Bad Company and Battlefield, like Hardline and Battlefield 3, they've cast their net so wide that I don't know if they can please all of the people that they've like captured.
Yeah. I mean, when I think about a great Battlefield game, 1942 was so much fun back then. The Desert Combat mod was so popular as well. Big fan of that, which was basically sort of, I think, the main reason Battlefield 2 went in the direction it did. And you're right, like Battlefield 2 was the game which for me, like that was the reason to upgrade your PC. Like that was when online connectivity in Ireland as well got like to a stage where you could play online. So when we weren't playing like games like Counter-Strike 1.6 and then eventually CS Source, like Battlefield 2 was like a game that like got your processor to like kick in and also was a fun online class-based shooter with like big maps and stuff. But my favorite game in the series still, hands down, is Battlefield Vietnam. I absolutely adore that game. Did you play that one, Mike?
Oh yeah, that was so. I got into the series with Desert Combat, the mod, because my brother was playing it, and then he got 2 on his PC, so I started playing that, and I really got into it like with Vietnam, Bad Company. Obviously not around the same time, but those were the first 2 that were really mine, and not like something I was. It was they weren't hand me downs, so those were the first 2 I really got into. Started realizing how much I like the series and how much I like how it set itself apart from other games.
There's a certain like feeling you have when you're flying a Huey and Credence is playing.
Oh yeah,
like changing the radio station for like, I think I'll listen to like Deep Purple now. Yeah, that sounds about right.
I think Vietnam, if they did go that direction, and I'm concerned they won't because of all the other near future games that are out right now, and video game studios are a lot like film studios where like they'll sort of do what their competitors are doing.
Right, yeah.
But if they did Vietnam, it would check a lot of the boxes. Like the photogrammetry from Battlefront is gorgeous, and they can do force really well. Although they haven't proven they can do photogrammetry with destruction, which I'm concerned about. But yeah, like a Vietnam game would have asymmetrical warfare. It would have mild customization. It would have photogrammetry. It would look gorgeous.
It would have Vespas.
Yep. Yeah, would have that. Some of the humor.
Yeah, you're right though. That asymmetrical multiplayer is something that we sort of haven't had in one of these mainstream multiplayer shooters in quite a while. And that was so much fun, like putting like punji sticks in and having like respawn points like pop up all over the place.
So I think it would be a good direction. If they're listening to Reddit, they would go World War II, which I'm still not convinced people want World War II, but there has been 10 years of people who maybe grew up without World War II and didn't sit there and play only World War II games for a decade.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That one's a mixed bag. I'm not sure.
I mean, I grew up on World War II games and I'm ready for World War II games as well. As long as they're sort of, they're they're handled effectively. So we've talked about 2, we've talked about Vietnam, we've talked about 1942. As much as I'd love to talk about Bad Company next, we should actually talk about 2142, which is one that a lot of people forget about. Michael, nodding your head. Is that an appreciation or the opposite?
I have no idea. I've played it for about 5 total hours at a friend's house down the street when I was still pretty busy, like playing, Desert Combat, like on my brother's old PC and stuff. I don't know. I remember playing it. I remember it feeling weird. I wasn't used to that futuristic setting, that aesthetic, and it kind of, I knew it was a Battlefield game, but I wasn't really used to the whole like shifting between these settings too much. So it was a very weird experience. I don't remember much of it.
It had this crazy mode. It was actually interesting because you can get inside mechs, and it had a mode called Titan mode.
Yeah.
Do you remember this? It was the like flying space station, right?
You had to get up and was it either take it out or capture it?
I think you had to put a bomb in it or something. So there was like a space station that was like, I guess, the final capture point on a series of capture points. And then you'd have to go up and basically stick a bomb in it.
You know who did that better?
Who?
Star Wars Battlefront.
Oh yeah, that's true. 2142 is an interesting one. I feel like it maybe went in a direction, like it did the future warfare thing back when people didn't want future warfare, and I think it probably suffered from it. So people were very happy when Battlefield Bad Company came around, and this is kind of thought as the game that didn't really sell very well. But if you I have never met anyone who played Battlefield Bad Company who doesn't love this game.
That game was designed. I've followed David Goldfarb, and he was one of the lead designers on that game, and he's always talked about how that game was designed to be more like the Indiana Jones inspired Battlefield.
Right.
And I think it showed. It was the first one that just wasn't generic mixed soldier dude. Like one of the best things about that game was once you got past a certain point, you could just stop. And the guys on Bad Company would start talking, and they would say really hilarious shit. Like,
you smell very clean.
like he's like, I think I'm an angry man because my mom used too much DEET when I was a kid. They just had these guys sit in the studio for I don't know how long, like 2 hours, and just talk. It was so good, and like it took place in World War II, and it took place in the present, and like. 1 or 2 of the levels were open. Like you drove across this giant desert and to these 3 different bases, and
you could if you found an ammo crate, you could just lay waste to the rest of the building just for shits and giggles, basically.
And that was going back. That was the game that got a lot of people off of Call of Duty. Like that was the first game that really appealed to the Call of Duty crowd.
Well, that was a game that had, hey, look, you can add a funny, interesting story with likable characters who you will remember. In a World War II game, in a World War II game, but just in a first-person military game, and I don't think anyone's done it better since. Like Battlefield Bad Company 2 was wonderful as well.
The catch was you had to love Rush, which I do, which is why I love that game so much. I think it didn't necessarily scratch the conquest itch that a lot of the Battlefield 2 people had, and that's again you've got 2 very different audiences. You've got people who passionately love Rush and the linearness that those levels bring, and then you have people who passionately love just the hands-off, here's my toolbox and a large open map. Let's go play some Conquest. So you need to appeal to both of those audiences to have a successful Battlefield game.
After that, then, Battlefield 3 came out in the end of 2011. And this was basically the time where EA sort of clapped their hands together and said, okay, enough is enough. We're not going to be the second, the also ran in the military first-person shooter. We're going for Call of Duty's throat. It had the same sort of Battlefield 2, super powerful PC aspect to it. Obviously, it came out on consoles as well, which the Bad Company series had as well. And I guess Battlefield 2 also came out on Xbox or something, but this was the first time they'd sort of really pushed it. I'm not sure if there was a PlayStation 2 version of Battlefield 2. Maybe there was. I'm feeling like there might have been. It was a weird time for first-person shooters back then. But what did you think of Battlefield 3, Mike? Were you a fan of that one at all?
I remember them pushing really hard for the fact that it was going to have that story-driven campaign, and at this point in playing games, I was primarily playing for single player, and I knew Battlefield wasn't the thing I was expecting a single player story from. But I played that, and I couldn't stand that single player. It was Call of Duty.
It was crazy how divisive that is, because for some reason I loved it.
Oh, really?
And I don't really know why I loved it.
Maybe it was just because I had just played Black Ops 2 or whatever came out that year, and the Black Ops games, I actually like their campaigns, their stories. But
I thought the French level, the Paris level, which is actually very difficult to play now, post what happened last summer. I thought that was one of the most amazingly atmospheric That and the jet plane one where you went off and did the mission and came back.
I remember that. The Paris one, whenever I think of Paris, I think of Modern Warfare 3 when the chemical attacks hit. And that's saying something because Modern Warfare 3 was like a 4-hour campaign. I barely remember anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Battlefield 3, I played a lot of multiplayer. I would just come off of, like the last one I'd played a lot was Battlefield, Bad Company 2. And I, just like you two, I love those games. And 3, I think, kind of was scratching that same kind of itch that I needed to get away from Call of Duty with. So it came around at a good time because even then I think Call of Duty exhaustion was setting in. And 3 kind of, gave me that more nuanced multiplayer angle I was looking for.
Yeah, baby. And things evolved, didn't they, Aaron?
De-evolved. I don't know, man. Like I did love 3.
How many? I want to couch this first of all. How many hours do you think you put into Battlefield 3?
Over 200.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm somebody who burns out after about the 1 to 200 hour mark.
Right.
That's like I'll just get that feeling like you've ate too much candy at that point, and I just no matter how much I want to keep playing, I can't. But I know people who could put 1,000 hours into that game easy. 3 was great. I loved it. I thought it did exactly what it needed to do, the multiplayer. I think it did have great rush maps, and it did have great conquest maps.
Caspian Border is, I still love that. Maybe mostly because of the aesthetic.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just some really memorable maps in there.
I think even their large conquest maps conceptually were good. The Armored Kill expansion was also really fun. Like Bandar Desert was massive and fun and like had so many different aspects to it. And their DLC's Aftermath was thematically very strong. It had scavenger mode, which was really fun in Battlefield. So it was just, there's so much done right with that game. It had the epic parachute jump on Dama Van Peak.
Oh, yeah. God, that's so good.
I just cannot believe they didn't do in 4.
Right.
Like, how do you not love a 1,000-foot parachute drop? And then, you got some guy up there with, like, the Barrett, like, firing all the way down to the bottom of the map. It's just, there were so many great, memorable moments from 3's multiplayer. And like, Terrain Highway, like, it was a night map that you, like, fought through a town at night, and then you fought into a city. Like, again, that was the Rush influence.
Yeah.
4 came around and they're like, screw it, we're just going to put everything on every map. And everything was so bland because of it. Like, rush crates were just haphazardly put wherever the hell somebody decided they were going to get put. Sometimes you would, like, run across a map and then run back across the map and then run to there was just no...
Like flow or anything, right?
Like Caspian Border when it was remade in Battlefield 4.
Oh, yeah.
One of the conquest points was a ditch. Why
that's ditch its strategic
Prime
value.
Why do I
You may not
care?
understand as somebody who actually you have had military.
Yeah.
Just like the one person here. And also, I guess the other problem you could say with that was, this was a game that had a lot of multiplayer problems with connectivity throughout its lifetime as well. I hazard to ask, but in the new Battlefield, I'm guessing one of the things you would be for battle log to just disappear forever.
There are aspects of Battlelog that are good. The ability to go in and futz with your character when you're on the bus somewhere is great. Like, everybody loves to do that. Games
bus futzing.
Yeah. Games like The Division, I was blown away they didn't have an app. Like, Destiny had an app, and I was just always messing around with my character, and that the ability to think about and engage with a game when you're not playing it is always a plus. Launching the game was a whole nother thing. Like, all that Battlelog did was put a barrier between me and playing the game.
Right.
And I cannot tell you how many times it literally took me 20 minutes to get my first game of the night launched because I had to patch Battlelog and then
restart.
And then it was on the wrong browser, and then it wasn't compatible with the browser setting, and then the browser return was confusing. Like, what does it mean if I check none? What does it mean if I don't check none? Like, am I getting proper return on the search that I put in? Like, it was always, and then you would get it to load, and it would take 5 minutes.
Yeah,
I timed it one time. It took me 5 minutes to get into the test server.
It's crazy.
So these are just barriers that don't need to exist. Just get rid of them, and let players hit start and get into a match.
Let's briefly talk about the sort of side games. Hassan in the chat making a good point. Battlefield 2 Modern Combat. I actually totally forgot about this. Totally different game to Battlefield 2. Single player, campaign. I actually really enjoyed it a lot. Did you play that one?
Me too, for very different reasons that I like the other games. But I remember getting into that, and I didn't even know what it was really when my friend told me to play it, because I had been a big fan of Battlefield 2. I knew what that was all about. I knew why I played it all the time for a couple of years. And Modern Combat was more. It was just this like wide scale single player missions from what I remember, and they were well designed. I think it was actually a good game for what it was going for.
There was like tank missions in there and then infantry stuff, and it
was a good balance between. It was like the Halo balance between vehicles and, or I guess the Battlefield balance between vehicles and foot combat. It wasn't what I was expecting from the franchise, but what it was going for, I think it nailed.
Doesn't look too hot now when you check out some of the footage, but still a memorable game. We also had Battlefield 1943, which was the interesting digital only version of like a sort of a pseudo sequel to 1942, which had a bunch of like Wake Island and a couple of other maps in there as well. It was all right.
Unlike other Battlefields, that one gave you these really like weirdly satisfying rewards for doing anything.
Yeah, it's kind of like one of those like slot machines, right? It was just like
you'd like snipe some guy across the map and you'd get one of those Call of Duty like, you're awesome. Like whatever. There was only 6 weapons. It was very simplistic. There was tons of like terrain deformation. I think it wasn't meant to be played for a very long period of time.
Yeah.
But it was a lot of fun like while it was there.
And then the last game to talk about, I don't think we probably missed one or two here. I know there was a bunch of expansion packs for all these games we haven't gotten into. Secret Weapons of World War II, actually, the expansion pack for 1942 was really tremendous and worth a little mention. But yeah, let's talk about briefly the game which opts to allow you to just go, you're arrested, put down your gun. Battlefield Hardline. Any fans here?
I didn't play much of it at all. I played 10 hours.
Right.
I remember the initial reveal trailer. It was weird them showing that trailer with the stuff that was going on, 2 years ago?
Yes, it was very strange. It was like police brutality.
It seemed an odd taste.
Still is. I'm like on the front pages.
No, they should have gone way more heavily into police brutality. They took the easy way out on that one.
I wonder actually if that was part of it, was that they were going for this Hawaii 5-0, woohoo, we're just cops doing whatever, and then went, oh no, we should. Someone will write a story about that in the future, I'm sure.
Sure.
But in terms of how it played, did you play much of it, Aaron?
I really enjoyed a lot of things that Visceral did with that game. They actually fixed a lot of DICE's problems. There was some coding issues like sound through floor bugs that always bugged Battlefield 3 people. Like you couldn't tell what floor somebody was on when they were running around.
Really?
So you'd hear somebody running at you and you'd like get your gun up and then it turns out they were a floor above you. Like Visceral actually fixed a lot of those problems. They brought a lot of humor to the game. The zip line and the downtown map I thought were fantastic. Like the
multiplayer actually did a bunch of interesting things.
If you take any individual element of what they did, I love it. Like they had these really funny 1 in 10,000 like animations. When you take it as a whole package, I think there wasn't enough of it. It had gone through 2 betas and then kind of was suffering from beta fatigue.
Right.
And there wasn't enough content beyond that to really hold people's attention. I also think that they should have done. They should have done some Battlefield maps. Like a lot of the maps were very tight urban maps, and they felt like they could have been about twice as big as they were. And I think they lost the core Battlefield crowd just because none of the maps really felt like Battlefield. And you wouldn't have had to have done all of them, like maybe half of them,
right? And
the other half are urban, but.
At least it's sort of picked the style and stuck with it for better or for worse. And yeah, that's actually true. I was kind of harsh on the single player aspect, but you're right. The multiplayer stuff was pretty good for a while.
It was enjoyable. There wasn't enough of it, and they didn't do enough of core Battlefield stuff to basically bring in the larger audience, which I think was sad because I think they really did do a lot of fun little things. And the one thing that they better bring into all the rest of the Battlefield franchise is the unlock tree from Hardline, where you just like earn currency and you just buy whatever you want.
Yeah, what you want, yeah.
Like I do not want to spend another 200 hours trying to get my ECM jammer unlocked to my jet while getting my butt handed to me by like senior jet pilots, and it's just not fun to play with a new gun and to get killed because you have to start with iron sights. It's just that they need to take. from that game.
Crazy franchise. It's been around a long time. I guess not even that long. 14 years, or probably shy of 14 years at this stage. But some tremendous games in there. I really hope that whatever they show on Thursday sort of lives up to some of the games that we talked about here, because there's been a half dozen absolute gems, like classics in terms of first-person shooters. Let's go around the table. Final thoughts. What is your favorite Battlefield game? Michael Mahardy.
I think I'll stick to my roots with Battlefield 2.
Okay.
Yeah, although I'm sure you might be saying what I was thinking of as well. But yeah, Battlefield 2 is where I got into it. It's when I really started playing a multiplayer game, because like Counter-Strike, and now we have, not comparing Counter-Strike to Call of Duty,
right,
but now we have Call of Duty. It's that fast-paced, twitchy, just kind of lacking in substance, whereas Battlefield is the opposite. Like every time you do a multiplayer match, you had like some crazy story to tell afterward.
Just pressing just med kits.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
Every couple of seconds, med kits. Who wants a med kit?
That was it. And I would just run around like an idiot throwing these MREs at people. Yeah. It was Battlefield 2 for me.
What about yourself, Ryan?
Predictably, Bad Company 2, but I will say if DICE doesn't hate money, they should just do an HD remaster of Battlefield 2, because a lot of their great maps in 3 were just remakes of Battlefield 2 maps. And I think people would absolutely buy HD Battlefield 2.
Yeah.
Just re-release it.
I would.
Yeah.
Give me a ticket for an airplane. I just love Battlefield Vietnam so much. It's like it goes down as one of my favorite. I was in a clan. I was in the Irish Guard TIG. I was their Huey pilot for about a year or so when I was like, I don't know, 14 or something. And I love that you could even just like put your own MP3s in a folder and just like play whatever the hell you wanted. So I'd just be like flying in with like Deftones playing or something.
Just with your helmet lopsided and the straps unbuckled.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Huge glasses that are fogged up.
It was so much fun. We'd spawn and everyone would get in the Huey and you'd basically like shuttle across the landscape, hug the flag, because all like 6 of you or whatever, 5 of you are in it, and we go tick, 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 and then go to the next one. And then like there'd be a battle at point 3 between 2 enemy Hueys. Yeah. And everyone would jump out when they thought it was going to explode. It's like one of the most memorable experiences for me ever. So yeah, probably Vietnam for me. Classic games. Let us know what you think is your favorite Battlefield, or what just is your favorite Battlefield, or what is the best Battlefield, and what would you like from Battlefield 4 in the comments. Sorry, Battlefield 4? Battlefield 5? Or whatever the hell they call
unnamed,
it.
just Battlefield.
Battlefield. They're going to go back to the start in the comments below.